Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Oh, come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with Trae.
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation, to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peeps that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
You know, until we get there, y'all know, I got to give you the disclaimer because it's the top of the show, y'all. So it's the perfect time for you to participate in our growth. Go ahead and share this show with folks who you feel could benefit from our daily dose of dopeness we work to give you here on The Day with Trae. And if you cannot watch us, don't worry. We got you covered. You can listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network and The Day with Trae, anywhere you find your favorite podcast, and we're going to be there. So that's okay too. Listen to us if you cannot watch us. Well, before I get into it later on with Jodi, I just got to send a huge thank you to all of the amazing executive directors and leaders who are leading phenomenal work on the ground in our communities. They are helping all of our communities be better. And to be honest, me working in this space, I have experienced firsthand. Not only is it that I'm passionate about this work, but I care about the elevation of my people and my communities, which is such a driving force for so many of these phenomenal leaders that oftentimes we don't have a good balance of personal time and work. The two feel synonymous because we're so passionate about making sure that people are receiving the justice they deserve. So much of that can come at odd hours of the day, the weekend. Those kind of situations don't understand the concept of time. And oftentimes it means that we're working late hours and on the weekend, and our families are experiencing us giving this sacrifice of our time and our energy and our passion for all of the work that we're looking to do in community. So I want to send a huge thank you because I know that I am one of you. So I feel it too. I also know that there's so many of us who are driven by the sentiment that we cannot take our feet off the gas because there's so much ahead of us in terms of what needs to be addressed. So I know it's a lot going on right now in the political sphere. Has always been some type of political driven nature that causes disruption in so many of our lives, right? But it also is important that we find ways to take care of ourselves, even when we're so driven by this passion that oftentimes comes from our own lived experience. Huge shout out to y'all because the sacrifices you are making and the dedication that you pour in and day out is not unnoticed. Now, some may say it's a thankless job. I've heard that plenty of times. I've felt that plenty of times because people don't realize how much you're actually pouring in from your own insides, right? Like there's so much truth and honor and love that is poured into this kind of work that ultimately, you know, we experience a lot of burnout. And we can't experience burnout. So we have to be thinking about that balance. And this is why I'm glad Jodi's here today, y'all, because we're going to be learning about how BIPOC ED Coalition has been bringing sabbaticals to all of these amazing leaders who are leading in ways that a lot of other systems cannot. You know, they're often the ones that are banging on the doors of our governor, our mayor, our other, governmental leaders to make sure they understand the needs of community and that we're finding solutions to bridge the gap. So as we think about all the phenomenal leaders in your life, as I'm encouraging you this week, feel free to drop a line. Hit me up on Instagram at Trae Holiday. Let me know who some of these phenomenal leaders are in your community so we can be inspired by their stories, but also so we can learn about the work they're doing and tap into it. That's really what the Day with Trae is all about, uplifting these inspiring people who are doing the work on the ground that is benefiting so many of us. So do not hesitate to let me know about those phenomenal folks in your world because BIPOC ED Coalition is definitely doing some work to ensure that phenomenal leaders are getting the break they deserve. And after this short break, y'all, up next, we got Jodi Nishioka joining me. We're going to be talking all about BIPOC ED Coalition. You definitely don't want to miss this. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Hello, welcome to Elite Insights with Carlos Imani. We're looking to offer an in-depth look at event production industry through the lens of client experiences and joint successes. The podcast will emphasize guest interviews, focusing on client, discussing their fields, and reflecting on their collaboration with Elite Collective. Again, you're with Elite Insights. Carlos Imani here. See you guys in a few.
Here on Back to Basa, it's always been important to me that we uplift stories from across the region and that no matter where you live in the nation, you never have to miss a moment of the show as we continue to highlight the beauty, excellence, and resilience of our communities across the Pacific Northwest. Why? Because representation matters. So no matter where you live, be it the Central District or Centralia, Portland or Pullman, or anywhere across the country, I encourage you to join me on this Back to Basa journey by downloading the free Fox Local app on your phone or smart TV as we continue to elevate the very best in our communities.
All right, welcome back everyone to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Joining me right now is Jodi Nishioka. Hi, Jodi.
Hey, Trae. Nice
How
to
are
be
you?
here.
You know, this is really exciting because I remember learning about BIPOC ED Coalition when y'all first started. Tell us a bit about how you got started with this coalition.
Yeah, we got started during COVID. So in 2020, if you think back to then, it was a crazy, crazy time. And we were all a lot of fear. People were dying and getting sick. And our leaders, I was running a nonprofit. I'm still running a nonprofit, but I was running a different one. And in my job, I worked with a lot of other leaders, just like I do now. And so was my co-directors, Andrea Calpain-Sanderson and Victoria Santos. And we were just chatting and going, God, we're hearing from all of our colleagues that, man, this is a really tough time. Everybody's stressing out. You know, there are particularly communities of color were disproportionately hit by COVID. And they're asked to step up. Their communities needed them to do more, and they weren't getting more resources. And they were just working super long hours, getting burnt out. They were even getting sick themselves. They were worried about their elders getting sick. They had kids at home that they were trying to homeschool while they were running their nonprofits. And people were just really like overwhelmed. And so we said, you know, let's call an emergency meeting of community leaders of color to just like check in with them. So with a 1 week notice, we got a list of all the nonprofits. We sent out this huge email and said, hey, we're gonna hold this emergency meeting just to like check in. And we thought maybe 30, 50 people maybe would show up. 150 people came and another 50 said, I'm sorry I can't make it, but keep me involved, keep me, stay tuned. So we were like, whoa, we tapped into something. So at that meeting, that just initial meeting, we just didn't really have a script. We just said, what's going on for you? We want to hear. And what do you need at this time? And then two things just completely rose to the top. And that was wellness. They were like, we are burnt, we are tired, we're sick. We don't know if we can sustain this, but we have to because our communities need, there's like no other choice, but we don't know how we're going to do it. And then the other piece was we need more resources for our communities because it's like $7 out of every philanthropic $100 goes targeted to communities of color. And they weren't getting it. And during COVID, when we were starting to get those PIP loans, I don't know if you remember that, the first round ran out in 2 weeks, and it wasn't going to communities of color. We're going to these like large businesses and nonprofits. And they were like, we're not getting the money, and we're doing way more than everybody else because we have to. So that's how we got started, and we knew we tapped into something, and then we're just like, okay, wellness and advocacy for more funding. That's what we got to do. That's what we were getting called to do. So.
Well, I really love that y'all had the foresight to say, let's hear what's needed. Let's try to find a way to fill the gap. Because I think that's where the best bodies of work come from, right? Where you understand there's a clear line and a clear pathway of like, if that's not being done somewhere else, let's just be the ones to do it. So I love that. How did y'all, develop the programs now? Like, I mean, y'all have some phenomenal things going on. Tell us a little bit more about that side of the work.
Yeah, so, we just thought, okay, wellness. So we first started bringing in like wellness experts who come from communities of color, who have history, indigenous folks, Black folks, Filipina. Like we had all these folks who have this lineage to wellness in their own communities and bring that forward. And we had people, opened it up and had folks come to those. So we started to doing that, and we started to hear about, no, we really need like sustained breaks. And we started to do research around sabbaticals. What does that look like? Who's doing it? What can, all of the research. And we're like, this is what we need. And we were hearing that from community as well. And, for a lot of folks in the nonprofit sector, people weren't used to hearing about sabbaticals.
Right.
In fact, I took a sabbatical too, just around COVID. And some of the folks on my board, even folks of color, were like, you're going to get a sabbatical? I don't even get a sabbatical. Like, that's only for like professors and stuff. We're like, no, we can change this, So we did the research. We've looked at all the different sabbatical programs, talked to folks who are doing it across the country. There aren't that many. And there's none focused particularly on communities of color, leaders of color. And we developed a program. I have to like shout out to some of these programs who are doing it in other states, and because they really like shared all of their knowledge with us about what they learned. And we developed it, and in 2022, we gave out 20 3-month sabbaticals. These are paid sabbaticals to the organization so that their salaries and benefits are covered and they can take 3 months off without an interruption, because we all know we can't. Those of us in the sector aren't getting paid enough to take 3 months unpaid. So they're not going to take it if it's unpaid. So we did that. And it's a relatively large grant. It provides for salary and benefits for the leader. It provides for stipends or bonuses for staff who are going to step up and cover and take on additional responsibility while the leader's on sabbatical, or if they have to hire interim help to come in. It also covers coaching. So we vetted and trained a bunch of coaches of color who are going to be available to our sabbatical awardees to get them ready for the sabbatical, the organization ready, so that all of the staff, the board, and the leader feel comfortable that nothing's going to fall through the cracks and that things are going to be fine while they're gone, and they can actually really let go and check out, which is really, really hard for many of these leaders. Many of these leaders have founded their organizations, 20, 30 years ago, have been doing this work. We had an applicant in her 70s, and I've talked to her. I know her well. She's been doing this work not for 7 years. She's in her 70s, and she said, I've never taken a break. And when we told her, she was speechless. She's like, no one has ever taken care of me like this. No one has ever done this kind of thing for me before. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. And I feel so privileged and lucky to hear from these leaders. Like when we call them and tell them, it's just like this amazing process. I love telling them, and they're just literally speechless. Like one person recently, this round, so we gave our second round this year, 2024, to another 21. So we gave 41 sabbaticals so far since we started, 3-month. And, it's just like she stopped talking, and I was like, are you there? And she goes, I don't know what to say. And then she started crying, and she said, my son passed. I'm going to get teary thinking about it. My son passed 2 months ago, and I have not taken the time to grieve. I was back at work 3 days later. And it was an adult son who had cancer. Wow. And I was like in tears with her, and she's in tears, and she's like, I'm going to have time to grieve. Wow. And I was like, oh my God, this is just like amazing gift for her, for us, just to even be able to do this,
What I really love about the work y'all are doing is y'all were in it. Y'all were the leaders you were looking to serve.
Yeah.
And there's something so special about that connection of lived experience that you can't really replace that, because you understand the weight that is being lifted off of these leaders when you are able to make that call and say, look, you're going to have 3 months. Everything is covered and you're good. There's something about this work that, as I was sharing earlier, that is driven by, people are always like, how do you do all the things you're doing? How do you do all the things? And I go, like my grandma would say that to me all the time. Well, when are you going to slow down? And I said, this is my time. This is what I'm here to do. I'm in my purpose, and I know that much, right? And so I have to really be intentional about the work that I'm doing. But I also understand that, this is what I'm here to do right now. And sure, maybe I'll slow down at some point, but now is not that point, right? And so understanding that we are driven by something that is like, our people still, we don't even have an anti-lynching law. There's so many things right that'll keep me going like that, because the reality is that there's so much work to be done. So I really appreciate that this organization, y'all started with leaders who were just like yourself.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
How has it been to really connect with in the community, providing this opportunity? Tell us a bit more about that connection that people are feeling in terms of that relief. Because now you've got some success stories of people getting back to work after their sabbaticals.
Yeah.
How has that been?
Oh, it's been amazing. And it is really, we, from the very beginning, like you said, we were all just volunteering. We were executive directors of our own organizations that just came together and held this meeting. We had no idea it was going to turn into something, right? And we just kind of kept doing a little bit more. While we're still running our organizations, we were doing this additional programming. We saw it as part of our work. And from the very beginning, we said, this is driven by what the community needs. We're part of the community, but we got to listen to what they need. And that's how we decided what we were going to do. And we continue to do that. We continue to check in with them. We have monthly community calls that folks can just jump on. It's a video call from all over the state. And then we'll check in. In fact, the sabbatical program has changed, we've tweaked it because of input from folks. And so now, instead of just 3 months, some folks said, hey, 3 months is great, and even 6 months would be great, but for some of us, we really can't even take off 3 months. There's just no way, because maybe it's a one-person organization or two-person organization or all volunteer or something. And they're like, can you do so we're like, okay, well, what works then? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 1 month? Is it 1 week? And they're like, 1 week too short. 1 month is great. And even 2 weeks would be a break, And this is and so we're like, okay, so we created additional opportunities. So now we have a 2 week. We just closed the application for the 2 week. It's a smaller grant, obviously. And then we have a 1 month that's going to come up. We're going to open it up in September for 1 month breaks as well. And that's going to be similar type of thing, but just for a shorter period of time. And so we are always listening to community. We're always engaged with them. We have these events to engage community, to hear from them, to just hang, to just be together. And, during COVID, we were all on Zoom because we couldn't be together. And so now we're starting to do some in-person events. We have we also have 3-day retreats. We held our first in-person 3-day retreat in Leavenworth at the Sleeping Lady for 25 leaders of color who came together, and we just said, rest. We have some healing opportunities that we can do together, completely optional. If it serves you to just go for a walk, go for a hike, sleep in your room, take a nap, journal, do that. But this is what I'm offering. And it was amazing to be in community with each other in person for 3 days. It was awesome. So we're going to have 2 of those, one in August, one in October. Here, it's going to be on not Bainbridge, one of the islands. I can't think of right now. And then we're also going to be doing, so we do keep hearing and listening and evolving with the times and with, what the communities are needed. And to your point around connecting with them and hearing from them, it's just the most rewarding work. I've always felt that about this work. The joy for me in doing community work, and I've been doing this kind of nonprofit community work for 30 years, is being in community, doing this, that's the joy. I walk out of here and I'm uplifted and have energy for the rest of the day, right? Being at my desk, typing, it's stuff that has to get done, but that's not where the joy comes from.
Yeah.
It's this authentic connection in community and being together and doing this work in collaboration. And I think that's what nonprofit work is. It's all about collaboration. There's nothing that we do alone.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, this is exactly why, it's interesting that this didn't exist for a long time.
Yeah.
The fact that like everyone talks about it, it's kind of been something in general discourse for a really long time, but to have an answer to it now is really special. Tell us a little bit about that process, because last question here, I can only imagine that when people realized that this was a thing, y'all might have been flooded with applications because everybody was like, I need this in my life. Tell us a bit about that process and how y'all are doing the selection.
So the first round was in 2022, and we put it out there as much as we could, but we were still just starting, right? It was our first time. We got 32 eligible candidates. We had a few more, but they were like from people out of state and things like that that just weren't eligible. And we want to make it so it's not competitive. We want every leader who needs a sabbatical to be able to get one. That's our goal. That's our goal. We're not there yet, but we're hoping. So the first round, we got 32 applicants for 20 spots. And the grants are 60,000, so we needed 1.2 million to give out 20 grants. And we went out to the funders and we said, this is our what we want to do. And people were really supportive. Maybe it might have been COVID. Maybe it might be the racial reckoning at the time. It was a great time to be raising money for communities of color, but we raised a little more than 1.2. So we said, you know what? The other 12, instead of saying no, we can afford to give the other 12 a smaller grant for 1 month. And let's see if they want it. They all wanted it. So we gave 32 grants out. And it wasn't what we planned, but we're like, let's just give everybody something if we can. This time, we just put out the applications and we just let folks know. We got close to 90 applicants for 20 spots. So we couldn't give everybody who needed something, but we did give 21, and that's part of why we're doing the 2 week and the 1 month to give other folks other opportunities that might work better for them. So the process is we put it out there that the application is open. It's an online application. We try to keep it super simple. We have basically 2 questions. What do they envision for themselves and how it's going to benefit them? And what do they envision for their organization, how it's going to benefit? That's it. We try to make it as low barrier as possible. And then we get the applications, we read them, we check for eligibility, and then we narrow down the top 25 that we think. And then we actually have in-person conversations with all of them first to kind of check out. What we learned in the first one is you need to be ready for your sabbatical. As much as you might want one, you might not be ready yet, or your organization might not be ready to allow the leader to take 3 months off. And we mean 3 months off, no work, no email if possible. Now, life happens and sometimes things happen and they have to get called back for something. And so we're not like super strict, but the idea is really for them to really get a break for themselves. And what we found is, this is a little bit off your question, but what we found, one of the main things we found is people getting back in touch with themselves. Yeah. Because these leaders, as you know, they have all this passion and their identity becomes their community work. It is part of who they are. They've probably been raised in communities where their parents were always helping people in the community at all times of the day. And so that's who they are, and that's what their identity is wrapped up with. And they need time to get in touch with themselves to kind of go, wait, now, what do I need to sustain myself so I can continue to do this work? Because if I don't pay attention to myself, I won't be able to continue. Yeah. Yeah. And it's in service to the community to take rest. Is resistance is another thing. Tricia Hersey's book that we subscribe to. Like, we get into this grind culture, and there's no culture of wellness, and that's what we're trying to cultivate, is a culture of wellness. And I just want to say that our white dominant American culture is like work, achieve. That's where your value comes from. But we have value just being human beings, just being connected with each other. And and so people of color in particular, I'll speak for myself, it's like we have to prove ourselves. Because as soon as we make a mistake or we fail or we don't produce, then you're either ignored or you're discounted or whatever. So on top of the grind culture that everybody is part of, for people of color, there's another layer of this, like, I have to keep working and our communities need it more.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so we need time to rest, to get back in touch with ourselves, to do some healing, generational healing, our own healing of whatever we might have be going through, so that we can have the strength and the endurance to keep going and doing the work that we love to do.
Yeah.
In a way that's, you know, really meaningful.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we have to still be our whole selves.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's the whole point here. We have to be our whole self. Jodi, thank you so much for the work y'all are doing. Of course, if folks out there want to tap in, they want to learn more, they want to support, look right there, let them know how they plug in.
All right. Our website is the BIPOC ED Coalition WA.org. BIPOC ED Coalition WA.org. Check it out. We have information about all of our wellness programs, including all of our sabbaticals. We have another sabbatical application coming up for 1 month. Sabbaticals opening up in September. So that's how you get us. Thanks.
Jodi, I appreciate you for coming and sharing all this phenomenal work with us here on The Day with Trae. Anytime y'all got openings, let us know, because there's plenty of need out there. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wow, y'all. What a phenomenal way to pour back into our leaders in our community. I'm going to wrap all of this up right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Big Tobacco thinks they know everything. They think they know you, your community, the places you go, the way that you spend your time. They think they got you all figured out, down to a formula, a calculation based off of numbers of what they think they know. Show them they're wrong. Learn more at theythinktheyknowyou.org.
Seattle really is just a big neighborhood. It was a place for us to grow.
We all have a gift of some sort. It's just my vision of what I see.
Theater allows you to hit harder and be more. There's a sense of hope that your story will survive longer than you will.
Stream on the Cascade PBS app or watch live. Fridays at 8:50 p.m. on Cascade PBS. Learn more at blackartslegacies.com.
Welcome back, y'all, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Wow. Huge shout out to Jodi Nishioka for joining me today and getting us all aware and understanding the need for BIPOC ED Coalition and the phenomenal work they're doing. Again, huge shout out to all of those who are leading and those who are utilizing rest as a revolution. It is so true. It is necessary in order for us to continue to be viable and sustainable in this work. So if you are someone or you know someone who is in need of those sabbaticals, please do not hesitate to go to their website and dive in, fill out that simple application, get yourself on the roster for one of these phenomenal opportunities to really take in some you time. It is necessary for all of those who are leading great work. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining me today. You know we're going to continue with these inspiring stories throughout the week. I'll be back with y'all tomorrow at 11 a.m. And until then, y'all, peace. Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.